How data tells a story behind the rows, an interactive exploration of databases, identity, and interpretation. So, behind every row in a database is a real person, a real experience, and a real story. So, in this presentation, we're going to explore how data is organized and how queries can shape the story we see in a data set. So, let's meet Maria. She is one row in a database. She's a first generation student. She works 34 hours per week. She's a nursing major and she has a GPA of 3.0. This is the data set. This is a table. To the system, this is data. Databases organize information into tables, make up of rows and columns. Each row represents a record and each column stores information about that record. And so this is the information we're going to get about Maria. Okay. So let's look. Let's observe. So before we analyze the data, we take a moment to observe the data set. What information about Maria appears here in this data set? And what parts of her experience might not appear in the data? Let's look at the query. This is one of the queries we can run. We're going to get average GPA from the community college students, which is a table, which Maria is one row in that table. So if we run this, we get the results of 3.06. So before we start running queries, we must consider questions. What do you think will happen if we only look at students who work more than 30 hours per week? So remember, when we talked about Maria, we talked about that she works more than 30 hours per week. So will the data information that you produce from that query, will it increase? Will it decrease? Will it stay the same? So then we filter. By applying filter, we limit the data set to specific records. The changes which students are included in this analysis, it may change. So here now we're looking at students, but we added a little where. We're changing what we're looking at, and we're looking at work hours per week, greater than 30. What if we change the filter again? This time we look at first generation students. What will happen? Will the results change? You saw that it did change. So context changes the interpretation. So what if we combine the filters? When we combine filters, the average changes again. The data state doesn't change. It's still the same. But the way we looked at it and analyzed it, it changed the outcome. So what are we really measuring is the question we need to ask. So there's some critical questions that we can ask. What assumptions are we making about students' performances? What other factors might influence these results? And what additional data might help us better understand the situation? So let's look back at Maria. Looking back at Maria's records reminds us the numbers represent real experience. Maria's real experience, she's working. So when you look at her data, when you look at all data and you change the filters, the data changes. So Maria is not underperforming. She is balancing survival. So there is responsibility, and when we try to aggregate data or we filter, we must understand what we're looking at. We must understand the information that's going to come out. The information that we're going to see may be different based on those queries. What assumptions might we make when interpreting these results, and what additional information might help us understand the situation more fully? So this is, what story are you telling when you're looking at data? Who becomes visible in averaging students? Who disappears? What happens if you change the query? What happens when funding depends on this data they're presenting? If you write the query, what narrative are you shaping? Data does not lie, but the story it tells depends on the questions we ask and the queries we choose.